taxi. A madman see me and start run towards me with a knife. So me run.
Okay.
When me a run, him take out a slingshot, take up a stone off of the ground and shot me in my back.
Oh, so you get a back shot.
Welcome to Irie News Network. A special welcome to my returning listeners and welcome also to those tuning in for the first time. Please watch the video to the end and please remember to like, share and subscribe. Click on the notification bell so that you can be notified when a new video is released. Today I will be reviewing the new video that Dionne Jaskson has released entitled Will Jamaican DJ Vybz Kartel Be Retried for Murder? But before I go into that new video, I just want to tell you a little bit about who Dionne Jaskson is. And this is very important because if somebody is giving you information, then you want to know if the person is competent to speak on the matter. So Dionne Jaskson is a journalist. She's also an attorney at law, and she is a lecturer in constitutional law at the University of the West Indies, Mona. Not that this means that whatever she says must come to pass, but it does speak to the fact that she is a credible and reliable source from which you can take information. So in her video, she gave background information about a similar case to Vybz Kartel and the grounds on which a retrial was denied. But before I go into the video, I am going to just give you some pointers that I made from listening to her video that will help you to follow along. So some of the points that she spoke about is the length of time that this retrial would cost and that sometimes the retrial actually takes longer than the original case. She also spoke about the resources as well as the prejudices. She also made mention of the strength of the prosecution as it relates to the availability of the evidence. She says that the court wasn't entirely satisfied with the prosecution's response as it relates to the availability of the witnesses. She also made mention of the exhibits, that there were 25 exhibits, and of the 25 exhibits that were used in the original case, only 16 are available now. And of the 16, some of them are missing. Some important ones are missing, for example, the DVD with the incident, as well as voice notes. She made mention, or she went into details about the time and the expense that a retrial could take. And she went on again to reiterate that the retrial could take much longer than the original trial. She also spoke about the adverse effects on Vybz Kartel's health, and this is based on a medical report in the form of an affidavit that was provided by a medical doctor. And she stressed that it was provided by a medical doctor, which means that it has credence, right? So she spoke about the length of time from which the incident took place to the length of time for the retrial, all right? Cases are currently awaiting retrial, she says, from 2022 and 2023, and even now a retrial date has not been set by the Supreme Court. Lastly, she spoke about the public impact, about the widespread publicity that the case had garnered and the incorrect reporting that has been happening on the media. So this is basically a summary of her entire video. So you can now listen to her video so that you can get a more profound understanding as what she's saying, and you can hear about the other case that she mentioned and compared it to the Vybz Kartel case so that you can make your own informed decision as to whether or not you believe that Vybz Kartel and his co-accused will be freed or they will be heading to a retrial. I must hasten to say also that at the end of her video, she did mention that even though she made her points and she stated her case, it is not basically left up to what she's saying, but it is up to the decision of the judges. All right?
The Court of Appeal order a retrial for Vybz Kartel.
I'm going to do 3 things in this video. I'm going to look at a recent ruling from the Court of Appeal that gives some clues. I'm going to look at the list of factors that the court will be taking into account, and then I'll discuss how all of this applies to Kartel and the possibility or likelihood of him being retried for murder. So let's start with the recent ruling handed down by the Court of Appeal. This involved the killing of a man called Michael Curtis in 2004. 3 men were tried and convicted for his murder: Omar Dunkley, Omar Blake, and Jason Coley. Curtis was killed at his girlfriend's house in the Augustown area of St. Andrew in Jamaica in 2004. Now, a jury convicted the 3 men on April 11, 2011, and they were sentenced 4 days later. And they were sentenced to 25 years in prison. So the time from the murder until the sentencing was already 7 years. And I can tell you, judges are going to look at how long ago a murder or a crime took place in deciding whether somebody should be retried. So this is what the prosecution says had happened. They had an eyewitness called Richard Simpson who said he saw what happened before the killing and after the killing. There wasn't any direct evidence of the killing itself. So he says that one afternoon there was a group of about 5 to 8 men who were sitting on the banking, what he calls the banking in the community. The banking was a concrete structure in an open lot near to where Curtis lived with his mother, Miss Williams. So he says, the eyewitness said, on this particular afternoon, Blake went over to Miss Williams' house and he said this: a long time in no make a duppy, a long time when a moan. After that, he went back to the group and said a long time in want kill a boy and run away. A little after that, Curtis came home, and at that point, Blake said to him, boy, how you look for me so? Then Curtis said, who I look for you? You see, who I look for you? You see me I look for you, man? Blake then said to him, hey boy, how you chat to? Curtis didn't answer and then went into his girlfriend's home, that's Pam's home. So Blake then said to the group, come on, get up, come, let's go, we're ready. And the 3 men then went into Pam's yard. 3 other men jumped the fence into the yard. Now, according to the eyewitness, he heard gunshots coming from the yard, and after that he saw Blake, Dunkley, and 3 other men running from the yard, and 2 other men had guns in their hands. And he said, Blake said to the other men, wanna kill the brown youth for? Now the men said they weren't at the scene of the killing and they weren't involved in the killing at all. That was their defense. But as I mentioned to you already, the jury did convict them and they were sentenced. Now, there are a bunch of issues that came up in this case that I do want to talk about perhaps at another time in another video. But for now, I'm concentrating on what happened here in relation to the decision as to retrial. In relation to Blake, the Court of Appeal reaffirmed his sentence of 25 years and said he should serve 16 years before being eligible for parole. In regard to Dunkley and Coley, though, the Court of Appeal quashed their convictions, meaning threw out their convictions, and entered verdicts of acquittal, so they're acquitted. But the Court of Appeal now had to go on to decide whether or not the men should be retried. In making the decision as to whether the men should be retried, the court looked at a number of factors that had been set out in other cases before. So there was a 2019 case of Brenton Tuller. There was also a 2017 case called Nareche Samuels. And all these cases are referencing a long ago case, a 1978 case from the Privy Council called the Dennis Reed case. And that's how our courts work. They rely a lot on what is called precedents, meaning they look at what previous courts have decided in similar matters. And the whole idea is that we have some certainty in the law, so you know what to expect. So these are the factors that the courts will look at in deciding whether there should be a retrial or not. The strength of the prosecution's case, the seriousness of the offense, the time and expense of a new trial, the effect of a new trial on the accused, the length of time from the offense and the time that a new trial would take, the evidence that would be available at the new trial, and the public impact that the case could have. Now, what the courts call the weight, meaning the importance of each of these factors, will be determined by the court in the circumstances of each particular case. So, there's no hard and fast formulas to say this issue or this factor is more important than that. Now, in the case that I've been talking about, the Curtis case, this is what the court said. The Court of Appeal said we have found no reason that would justify a retrial of the case against either Dunkley or Coley, and they explained their reasoning like this. Messrs. Dunkley and Coley would be severely prejudiced by a new trial, as approximately 20 years would have passed since the crime was committed. They would have served about 13 years of their sentence to date, and the possibility of a retrial date in the near future is hardly likely. Furthermore, the trial was long and tedious, caused in no small measure by the fact that the principal witness had a serious speech impediment. Therefore, the resources likely to be incurred for a new trial would be enormous. In all these circumstances, the interests of justice would be better served if no retrial was ordered. So they looked at things like the possible length of a new trial, the resources that it would take, and the prejudice to the men if a new trial were to take place, especially since they expected that a retrial would not be held soon. So how does all this relate to the Kartel case? Well, let's go through the factors one by one. One, you have the strength of the prosecution's case. I thought the prosecution had a pretty decent case at trial the first time around. This time, it might be affected by another of the factors, which is the availability of evidence for the retrial. Now, the Court of Appeal at the retrial hearing had been asking about the availability of witnesses. They hadn't seemed quite satisfied with the prosecution saying, yes, man, the witnesses are available. They wanted a much more detailed account. You know, we called witness A said he's available. We called witness B said she's available. Later on, though, the prosecution did make reference to a table they said was in the documents they had given to the court, and they seemed to suggest that that table would answer the questions of the court. Well, we didn't hear what was in the table or see it, so I don't know the extent to which it goes to satisfy the courts. I'll leave that one there. The issue of exhibits, though, is another thing, because one of the defense lawyers, John Clark, at the retrial hearing pointed out that there had been 25 exhibits at trial, but he said only 16 had been verified as being available for the retrial. And he said that in those exhibits that had not been verified were some of the most important ones, including, for instance, the DVD that was said to have the video of the murder. Also, the DVD that had the voice notes. He also said some of the exhibits the defense had relied on for their case had not been verified either, such as the signature of the eyewitness, as well as a letter to the public defender. Now, I have to tell you, I want to know what happened here. Are the exhibits available? They lost? Somebody can't find them? Somebody forgot to verify them? I'm really curious as to what happened here. But in the meantime, whether we're here or not, this has to be something that the court takes into account. Then you have the seriousness of the offense. Well, this is a murder case. You can't get more serious than that. So that would be something that would weigh in the prosecution's favor. Then you have the time and expense of a new trial. This, I think, is going to be a big issue, and maybe even the biggest issue in this case. You've probably heard that the trial lasted 64 days, one of the longest, if not the longest, in Jamaican history. 30 witnesses were called, 24 by the Crown, 6 by the defense. And yes, we still use words like the Crown because we still have a king. King Charles is the king of Jamaica. Don't get me started on that one because I'll really go off, all right? But just put that to one side for the moment. The judges in the Court of Appeal at the hearing were asking a lot about this issue, the time a new trial would take and the expense. Also, in terms of time, a retrial could be even longer than the first trial because the defense have given notice that they plan to challenge some of the exhibits, some of the evidence. Then you have the effect of a new trial on the accused, and at the retrial hearing, the defense made a big thing about the deteriorating mental and physical health of Vybz Kartel and the impact that a new trial would have on him. One of his lawyers, Isaac Buchanan, told the court that, according to the doctors, a new trial would have a serious effect on him, that he'd be likely unable to last through a new trial. And this was material that was put before the court in the form of medical reports, affidavits from doctors, medical reports from doctors. So that is likely to be a factor in favor of Kartel and his co-accused. Then you have the length of time it could take to have a new trial, as well as the length of time it is from the time that the murder took place. So according to the prosecution, Lizard was murdered in August 2011. Kartel was arrested in September 2011. So we're already talking about nearly 13 years from the commission of the offense to this retrial hearing, and the men have been in custody for most of that time. In addition, we don't even know when a retrial would be. The prosecution says they could be ready in a matter of months, or in 2025 that a retrial could be held. The thing is, though, this is up to the Supreme Court to decide. What we do know is that cases that were sent from the Court of Appeal back to the Supreme Court for retrial in 2022 and 2023 have not even had a trial date set yet, a retrial date set yet. So we don't know what's going to happen, and that kind of uncertainty would weigh in favor of Kartel and his co-accused. The Supreme Court has said they can fast-track matters if necessary, but again, we don't know if they would fast-track this case. This is an issue I think will weigh in favor of Kartel and his co-accused and an acquittal. You have the issue of the public impact that this case would have, and I think it's undeniable that this is one of the biggest cases that's probably ever come before the Jamaican justice system. So we're talking about huge public impact. The presiding judge, Marva McDonald Bishop, at the retrial hearing said a number of times that the case was important. She in fact said it cast a lens over the entire justice system. Couple things here. I think one of the prosecution's strongest points is always going to be the importance of seeing that justice is done. The importance in, for instance, murder cases of seeing that people are brought to book and that, that justice is served, especially in a high crime environment like Jamaica. So that would be a factor in favor of the prosecution. Now, the courts have said this list is not exhaustive, meaning you can look at other issues as well. And publicity has been a big issue in this case. The defense had made the argument that because of the widespread publicity, especially on social media, all kinds of prejudicial things have been said, some quite frankly incorrect reporting, wrong reporting, whole heap of foolishness out there, that there's no way Kartel and his co-accused would be able to get a fair trial if a retrial were ordered. I'm really hoping that the Court of Appeal helps us in reasoning through this one, because we need to understand in this age, in the modern age of the internet and social media, how the issue of publicity is going to be regarded. What would qualify as publicity that's so widespread, that's so extensive that you can't get a fair trial? But on the other hand, the court has to be careful about sending the message that celebrities, because of social media coverage and media coverage generally, can't get a fair trial, because then how on earth would we be able to try any celebrity for anything? So I'm really interested to see their reasoning on this particular point, and I'm hoping they go through it comprehensively. So what do I think is going to happen? Because I know you want to know. So here's the thing. I'm not going to climb down off the fence completely. I will say that I think there are more factors in favor of an acquittal than in favor of a retrial, especially that issue about the length of time since the murder, which took place in August 2011. Having said that, though, it's always going to be up to the court to decide how much weight, that is, how much importance they give to each of these factors. They could, for instance, say that Jamaica has such a huge crime problem, or such a high crime environment, that for them the most important issue is that people who are accused of murders be brought to trial for the justice system to play out. They could say that. We don't know. As we say in court, my lord, my lady, that's a matter for you.
Thanks for watching my video if you have watched it thus far, and please remember to like, share and subscribe to my video, and do remember to click on the notification bell so that you can be informed when other videos are being released. Thank you.